Hey everybody, I want to share with you the findings from an article on my website, and the title of the article was "The Dietary Guidelines Are Virtually Identical in Every Country in the World, while obesity ranges from 1.6% to 41.4% in South Korea and Qatar, respectively, a 30-fold difference. Therefore, the dietary guidelines cannot be the cause of obesity." Okay? I want to go through these different dietary guidelines so you can see for yourselves that each of these dietary guidelines is very clearly similar to the American dietary guidelines. So we'll start with the food pyramid. It's from the 1990s, but it's a good representation of what the dietary guidelines for Americans say, and they haven't changed much from this time. It's just we have different representations. We have a My Plate now, as opposed to a food pyramid. Which who came up with the idea of a food pyramid? By the way, did we want to have echoes of Pharaohic Egypt? You know, like what? Why a pyramid? But it's fine. Nonetheless, this pyramid reflects basically what the dietary guidelines say. So if you look at Qatar, instead of a food pyramid, they have a food oyster, and everything is inside this oyster, which is bizarre. But YOLO, YOLO. Figure out a way to represent stuff. Qatar, I guess we're gonna have an oyster. So it's the same thing. So it's a bunch of grains. It's got a bunch of veggies, fruits, milk, and then some meats here. Right, and so it's essentially the same as the food pyramid in terms of the proportions, maybe even more vegetables, right? There's more vegetables and more fruits and vegetables in the Qatar pyramid, but nonetheless, that doesn't help them out. So they've got a 42% obesity rate, right? Malta, 36.6%, right? It's the same thing. They have a massive amount of vegetables, actually much more than America. A lot of grains, fruits, but it's relatively similar proportions, and it's just relatively the same thing. Same thing with Antigua and Barbuda, right? They have a pineapple, so I guess every country has their own thing that they put things in. But it's funny, in Antigua and Barbuda, it's like a pineapple. So the foods you're recommended to eat is inside of the food. I didn't make the rules here. All right. So, but anyway, so it's got sugars and sweeteners and fats and oils. It's very similar to the peak of the pyramid in America. So this tiny little slice got vegetables, fruits, food from animals, and actually that's quite a large one. And then the starchy foods is even larger, and beans, peas, and nuts is so it's very similar. The Eat Well guide from United Kingdom, 34% obesity there. Similar. It's the same thing. Lebanese food guide, it's the same thing. Lebanese food guide looks like the food pyramid that a 3-year-old drew. So you ask a Lebanese 3-year-old to redraw the food pyramid based on what they're seeing. And I guess maybe the president of Lebanon asked his 3-year-old, hey, draw the food pyramid from America. We're gonna go publish this thing. And the 3-year-old kid from Lebanon, the president's kid, drew this. And so that's their food pyramid, which is exactly the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Oh, it's a cedar, so it's a tree. Okay, so it's not a food pyramid, but it's basically a food pyramid with a trunk. Took me a while to figure out what that was. Maybe they actually had a 3-year-old kid of the Lebanese president actually drew it, and then it was so bad they couldn't figure out how to publish it, so they called it a cedar in order to make it seem like it was actually intended to be that way, but it was actually intended to be a pyramid. Anyway, we're going on to the St. Lucia dietary guidelines. It's the same thing, except it's a coal pot. What's a coal pot? It's a pot for coal. First, I guess in St. Lucia, coal pots are important. So there's the staples, which is to say it does have some fruits in here too. That's interesting, or it seems to be these fruits. I don't know what those things are, but it's a lot of grains and then some weird fruits and stuff, and then food from animals. So they actually mix fruits with the grains at the bottom, and they also have their own fruit section. Man, I don't know. Maybe they didn't pay this guy who made this very much. He got paid $2 an hour. So he's like, I got to go home. I'm just gonna make this as fast as possible. He's got food from animals, and then fats and oils and sugar sweeteners at the top. And it's very similar to America because the same structure. United Arab Emirates. I can't read Arabic. I'm sorry. I'm assuming that yeah. I'm assuming that. But anyway, the obesity rate is 31% there. Bahamas. In the Bahamas, we got I don't know this stuff. Food pyramid from Ireland. They've got a literal food pyramid. They copied us. Well, we copied them. They probably copied us because we're awesome. And it's the same thing, except vegetables is at the bottom instead of at But despite that, the obesity rate is still similar. Okay, it's the same thing. Here's my plate. My bad. So the obesity rate in America is not 40%. It's 29% or 30%. But in any case, it's very similar. So yeah, so even in the countries that have more vegetables at the bottom, they still have which is better than America, because vegetables are going to help you to reduce weight. They still have a higher obesity rate than America, so it's not like it's not helping. But yeah, here's my plate in America, whatever that means. I guess you fill that plate with that amount of food. Here's Canada. For the Canadians, half the plate is fruits and vegetables, high protein foods, and then grains, which is actually kind of low carbish. This is cool. It's like a paleo my plate. But nonetheless, despite it being paleo, it's only got a 0.4% less obesity rate. Okay? All right. We keep looking at all this stuff. It's the same thing. It's the same guidelines across the world. It's the same guidelines. Some of them have vegetables below the grains. Croatia, Costa Rica. But check this out. We go all the way down to I don't know, Cyprus, right? It's the same thing. It's the same food pyramid. It's the same thing, except they have oils in the middle. And they have a lower obesity rate by 10%, lower than America by 10%. All right, let's go down to Denmark, Namibia. Namibia has the same thing. It's the same food. It's the same thing. And you've got a literal food pyramid in Iran. So, and then you've got a food wheel in Germany. Germany has a 16.6 obesity rate. But again, the food wheel in Germany is the same as in America, but it's half the obesity rate at this point. Israel, again, same thing. Belgium, same, another food pyramid, la pyramide alimentaire. So I hope my French was good there. It's probably horrible. It's been I could never even speak French, even whenever I could read it. And I was learning French, I couldn't even pronounce the words. So I know I sound like French to people who don't speak French, but to people who speak French, I know that was abysmal. So I apologize for that. We're going to go into the Netherlands. It's the same thing, and they have a really low obesity rate. We're going to go on to the Seychelles. I guess this is an island. These are islands somewhere. Same thing, right? Switzerland, they have a literal food pyramid. Same thing. And they have a food flag in Thailand, right? Same thing. Grains are at the top, meaning grains, the most you're going to get is from grains. 8 to 12 servings for Thailand, so they're all eating a bunch of grains. And then the Pyramida Alimentare. I don't know how to speak Romanian, but it's the same thing. The grains are at the bottom. They literally plagiarized the food pyramid. This is a literal plagiar. In terms of the servings, it's the same exact things, except they added water at the bottom and then exercise even below that. And then besides that, they plagiarized us. We should sue Romania. We have Austria, which is again, water at the bottom, then some fruits and vegetables, then grains. Okay, so they're paleo-ish. Okay, cool. And then they're doing well. Nigeria, Nigeria is the same as us. They've got grains all at the bottom, then fruits and vegetables. They got a lot of fruits and vegetables. Their obesity rate is 9%. Sierra Leone, same thing. Biggest plate is the grains. Benin is, again, cereals. This is at the bottom. Obesity rate of 7%. Indonesia, same thing. Sri Lanka, they ripped off our food pyramid. These jerks. Sri Lankans, they have a 6% obesity rate. Okay, cool. Yeah, if you just keep going down, Japan, 2.5% obesity rate, right? 2.5% obesity rate, and yeah, they're clearly, they're doing better, but they're not substantially different from any of these other guys. In Vietnam, Vietnam is the same. Korea is the same. So Korea is like this. Korea has the actually lowest obesity rate of any country in the world, and it has like the same. Although they don't have any servings at all. This is actually interesting. They kind of like say to eat more meat, fish, eggs, and beans. Whatever. It's basically the same. And when you do look at the actual intake of these countries, although they say to eat more fish and eggs and stuff. So for example, if you look at Japan, it has like a higher fish and meat, category than America. They actually eat half as much meat. If you actually look at their self-reported meat intake or even their food availability data, so they eat half as much meat in these countries, even though they're recommending more. So it doesn't mean it doesn't translate into more meat consumption. But let's get on to like a really interesting and important point about this. So I actually wrote a follow-up post to this because people were like, well, maybe. Yeah, sure, maybe the guidelines are different across countries. Or sorry, the same across countries, and they have different, as a result, they have different, but they also have different obesity rates despite guidelines being similar across countries. Okay, so but then maybe it's because the guidelines have been instituted for different periods of time. So let's say, maybe the countries that have got the guidelines the longest are the ones that have the most obesity because the guidelines have been there the longest. Because if guidelines cause obesity, then if the guidelines have been there the longest, then maybe have the most obesity, or the opposite. The guidelines have been there the longest, they have the least obesity because it's helping obesity. So actually, John Speakman, who's like this famous scientist, he's like, I think he's the member of like the Royal Academy in like the UK, also a member of like the National Academy of Sciences in China, and also a member of the National Academy of Sciences like in America. And he like responded to me. He's like, hey, why don't you look at the different times, how long the dietary guidelines have been in effect? And so I did that. I called it the 72 countries study. And I looked at the obesity prevalence versus years since the guidelines were implemented. All right. And there's a correlation of an R squared of 0.0058. Okay. So if you look, it's random noise. You can see the prevalence of obesity versus years since the guidelines have been implemented. It's like there's no relationship at all. Zero relationship between the two. Okay. And there's a p-value of 0.5. And I show you some spreadsheet data to this effect. Okay, so that's that. That's how that turns out. And I just wanted to point that out because, people say obesity epidemic is caused by the guidelines. Well, the guidelines are the same across all the countries. The obesity is different. And it doesn't matter how long the guidelines have been implemented. So the guidelines aren't changing the rate of obesity. People don't eat because of the guidelines. People eat because of local food culture, local history, local socioeconomic circumstances, like economic inequality, things like that. Those are the things that drive food behavior, food culture. Those are the things that drive eating behavior and food behavior and obesity rate. It's not the dietary guidelines. That's the point of this video. It's not the dietary guidelines. Dietary guidelines don't affect the rate of obesity. So if you want to say like, let's change the dietary guidelines, it's not going to make any difference if you change the dietary guidelines. If you change the dietary guidelines, you're like going to get zero impact in the real world. Unless you like mandate that people follow them. Like you have to follow them and you have to like take pictures of your food and you'll have Big Brother camera on the wall making sure, and then you'll go to prison if you don't. Like there has to be some way to enforce this stuff. I'm exaggerating a little bit. You could incentivize it in other ways. But there has to be some way to make it so that the guidelines actually permeate the fabric of, food behavior, which would be really controversial and really people would get really upset by it because they don't want to have to like change their food behavior based on what the government says. They want to make their own choices. So as a result, like it would be very hard for have a dietary guidelines that actually achieves significant changes in eating behavior. And to the degree that many people would experience that as intrusive. Unless you had some sort of guidelines that could inform food prices, and so you sort of like fixed food prices based on dietary guidelines so that people would be incentivized economically to eat certain foods over other foods. But again, super controversial that kind of solution would be. I'm not saying it's wrong. Like that would be cool. Like if we could do that, I would be in favor of that but I know that most people wouldn't. So it's probably not gonna ever happen. And so, but the point is guidelines by themselves are not going to modify the rate of obesity or the obesity epidemic. They don't. So all these people complaining about guidelines, the Nutrition Coalition, they don't matter. They're just spreading misinformation about the guidelines. They're spreading misinformation about nutrition. But they're not going to change anything even if they change the guidelines. Because the guidelines don't affect the rate of obesity. Okay? All right, if you like this video, check me out on Twitter and TikTok, Instagram at Kevin Nbass, KevinNbass, KevinNbass. Check me out on Patreon at the same, KevinNbass, to support me, because this post actually cost me money to make, because I actually had to have a volunteer team put it together. So the more money I can get, the more I can actually do analyses like this that are interesting. It's a public service. And when my channel does make it big, which it will eventually, then I can, then this video will be carried along with that, and people will be able to watch it. And videos like that will be carried along with the bigliness of the channel. And I need to get a Bugatti. So the only way I'm going to get a Bugatti is if you give me big Patreon donations. I need like $500,000 a year minimum, maybe $1 million a year in Patreon donations. So I've got, a fraction of a percent of that. So we got to increase it quite a lot. So please be a part of that increase so that I can get me a Bugatti. It seems reasonable. All right. Also check me out at thedietwars.com. You can also directly donate at thedietwars.com/support-me. But check out thedietwars.com period, because a lot of these videos are going to get reposted on the website in terms of a blog post. And check me out on my podcast, The Kevin Bass Show, both on YouTube and on your favorite podcast platform directory, like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That would be the way to go. Do that. And subscribe. Subscribe to this channel. Press the like button. Press the subscribe button. Do it like now. Do it now. Now. If you're still here and you're still listening, do it. Just click it, because you're listening for a reason. It's destiny. Click that subscribe button. All right. And then click the like button too, because the more likes, the better. Come on. You guys have really been slacking off on the like buttons lately. Click the like button. Don't just write algo in the comments. Write algo in the comments too, and make a comment. That would be cool. But definitely click the like button. Much appreciated. All right. Anything else? Blah, 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 blah. Comments, feedback. Tell me if I'm doing good. Tell me if I'm doing bad. How I'm doing better. How I'm doing worse. How I'm deteriorating. How I'm becoming stupid and boring. Let me know about all those things. Not the stupid and boring stuff. Unless you really believe it. And you've been commenting for a while. Because if you're a newbie and you comment that I'm stupid and boring, you're going to get blocked. But if you're somebody I've taught who's been commenting for a while, you can say it. Don't say it that way, though. Be nice. Don't say it in that way. Be nice, say it in a nice way. But if you do say it on this video, that kind of comment, I'll know that you're calling me stupid and boring, especially because I know on this video in particular I said that. So if you find a euphemistic way of saying it, I know you're calling me stupid and boring, but I'm okay with it if you've been doing this for a while. So call me stupid and boring, or just tell me that I'm doing a good job. That would be good. I need a pat on the back. I need some approval, some validation sometimes too. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope this kind of analysis is helpful for people, and I hope people learn some things from this, because if people just knew this, we would just wipe away so much BS in this space of nutrition and stuff online. If people knew this stuff, it's just if people just watched my stuff, they just watched my stuff, watched my content, and that's that formed the nucleus of their knowledge. Everything would be changed. Legit, it would all be changed. People would be oh shit, why was I didn't understand this? So share this as well. Share this far and wide. Share this to your friends, share this to your family, share this to Facebook, share this to Twitter, share this to Instagram, share this to TikTok. Let people know about these videos, and share this channel, And subscribe. Did you not click the subscribe button? If you're still here, click that subscribe button. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.